Welcome back to another episode of Built in Ohio, the Ohio X podcast, where we're talking with and about the people, companies, and ideas that are building out Ohio's tech hub. So today we have a great guest from a great organization who's got a really big event coming up in a couple weeks. And so, Lorne, welcome so much to the show. Thank you for being here. And if you could, maybe we'll get right into it. Tell us a little bit about VC Fest coming up, what it is, and perhaps and I'll say most importantly, there's a lot of fun and I'm looking forward to being there, but the people that you're attracting from not just Ohio, but getting them to outside the state as well. But yeah, let's just dive into VC Fest.
No, I appreciate that, Chris, and excited to be here with you. VC Fest is our flagship event here at JumpStart, and we're only a few weeks out. So it'll be held at the Huntington Convention Center on September 16th and 17th. And the reason this is our flagship event is because it really convenes top-tier venture capitalists, angel investors, visionary tech founders, and tech innovators throughout the ecosystem for 2 days of networking, hopefully some deal making, and then we pepper in our content via dynamic panel discussions, as well as some keynote speakers to create a 2-day engaging experience for investors and tech founders to participate with us in helping to drive the Ohio ecosystem even further.
I love it. And you talk, investors, startup folks, I'll be there myself. And I'm really looking forward to it. But people are coming in from across the state. I know people that will be there from Cincinnati and Dayton and Toledo and Columbus, you name it. But you're also doing great work in attracting capital companies from outside of Ohio, because I think that's one of the things that we're all hoping to do more of, is attract people to come here and do business and hopefully, perhaps maybe set up shop at some point. But talk about kind of that aspect of it, of kind of the putting the pin on the map for Cleveland and Ohio.
Yeah, I think, in doing VC Fest this year, bringing investors and founders from outside the region was equally important to us. So we certainly crafted an agenda for the event that would be of interest to those to travel. I think that complements what we've been doing at JumpStart with more emphasis over the last 12 months, is that programmatically, when we create opportunities for tech founders to engage with us during the year through accelerators like our Trailblazer Accelerator, it's very much with that mindset of bringing in founders and investors to the local ecosystem, because we have great startups here and we have interesting investing opportunities. So specifically as it relates to VC Fest, when we crafted the agenda this year, that's focused on AI relevant topics for those that attend. We have specifically one panel on investing in AI. I think when we brought in the keynote speakers that are not from Cleveland, that are traveling here as well, that will bring in their base as well, and the topics that are of interest to the keynotes are topics that are of interest to Ohioans as well as those outside Ohio. And then specifically this year, we have our own Trailblazer companies pitching, as well as the World Cup, the Startup World Cup that will be here this year, right? So when we have a regional competition that could lead to the crowning of the Tech World Cup recipient in San Francisco later this year, right? You're creating something that resonates more. It resonates as much with those outside the ecosystem as those within the ecosystem, right? I mean, I think in the first couple of years, we've built up the brand of Ohio VC Fest. We have great stories we can tell Ohio founders receiving capital through the efforts around VC Fest, but we've raised the game this year. We've certainly tried to make the event more relevant to those inside the ecosystem, equally with those outside the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I have to say kudos on choosing what I feel like is a perfect Northeastern Ohio timing of the year, kind of that early to mid-September, which, you want to talk about showcasing a part of the world that's beautiful. And it's kind of that September timeframe. So I love it. And, as someone from Northeastern Ohio, that's kind of the perfect time to do this and to get people, driving in from places like Chicago or New York and hopefully the coast too. But the newness and some of the new components, you briefly mentioned the Startup World Cup, which is a fascinating new opportunity, and that's perhaps just one of them. But talk a little bit more about that, of what I guess one it is, so people kind of know about it and what to expect. But then also just why that matters, and you kind of gave us a bit of a teaser, but kind of digging a bit more, and at the end of the day, helping elevate an Ohio startup, on a national, international stage.
Yeah, so the Startup World Cup is, at least we are one of the regional hosts of the
Mhm.
competition. And I think our experience from the prior VC fests is that if you complement the panel discussions with the real reason we're all so passionate about entrepreneurship, right?
Mhm.
Pitches from very talented entrepreneurs, that kind of drives the vibrancy in the room. So again, Cleveland is one of those regional Startup World Cup sites where one winner will be selected from this region to travel to San Francisco to have the chance to compete for $1 million. But I think it's not just the enthusiasm around that great opportunity, but the visibility that the Startup World Cup founders are going to have when they're pitching to an audience of not just Ohioans, but diverse investors that are from other geographies as well. And we didn't just eliminate the Trailblazer accelerator pitches that JumpStart hosts as a result of our programs, which we've done in years past. We've added on the Startup World Cup pitches to the Trailblazer pitches that will happen separately. So we'll have more of those local tech founders pitching this year than ever before. And I think that provides the right balance of, again, hearing directly from our community founders with the panel discussions, with the keynotes, to create a larger effort this year, one that probably better reflects the geography, better reflects the momentum here in Northeast Ohio and throughout Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to create the passion that we see on a day-to-day basis at JumpStart over these 2 days. And I think the blend, again, of the two very prominent keynotes with the panel discussions and those pitches is going to be the right ingredients for a wonderful 2 days together.
Yeah, I love it. And there's, as you all know and see every day, as you're just mentioning, but there's incredible Ohio pride, for people that building here. And whenever I kind of, think of it in that sense, it's like watching the Buckeyes play, which it's a good start to the season. And there's always that Ohio, against the world flag. And, you see it on the homage t-shirts, and I'm wearing my homage shirt now, but I think that's incredibly cool. And with your all's, support and, platform, one, putting that together. So then one, that's now a component to the day, to your point, but then two, helping facilitate and get an Ohio founder. Cause that's something, is, we all know, is that tech can sometimes kind of be, you're in or out in terms of, if you've worked in Silicon Valley, if you have those connections, like, you know how to operate it. But for a lot of Ohio founders, if they've never been out there before, kind of have those built-in connections, which, I've never been out in San Francisco for a career or anything like that. Putting them on that same stage and making sure that we have our voices out there, because, that's just, it's an incredible thing to give people that opportunity. So just, thank you for doing that, because that's a big deal.
No, and I think, as much as we try to organize the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
The organic conversations that hopefully
Yeah.
happen at an event like this is what builds the momentum annually.
Yeah.
One story that I have reflected on numerous times was, there was a founder just having lunch last year, and had maybe been necessarily struggling in the local ecosystem, but wasn't getting a lot of visibility in the local ecosystem. And we had an investor in the room who happened to be 2 spots behind this individual in line, coming in from New York City, a large investor in New York City. They struck up a conversation, and the next thing you know, that individual's raised 7 figures of capital, some non-dilutive, some dilutive, and has literally become somebody that we would like to use as an example of that organic experience you can have at VC Fest. It was actually an AI company last year. So fitting for this year's topic being heavily AI focused, but those are the types of organic conversations that I think, lead to the outcomes and the impact we're all looking for from this event, right? It's certainly great to get volume attendees, but we're looking for impact attendees. When we talk about having investors there, when we talk about having tech founders there, it's to create that impact. And yes, organizing actual pitches on the days is very helpful. I mean, one of the software Trailblazer accelerator pitches that was heard last year, literally Jeff McCandless from CoMarket, first software cohort we ever ran at JumpStart through the Trailblazer accelerator, received dollars in his account 15 days after VC Fest from an investor. So these things can happen organically. They can happen through the structure. We're just trying to create opportunities. That is what the 2 days are about: opportunities and impact.
Yeah, and it's often funny because technology, we can AI, but at the end of the day, it's that human connection. And so also, very smart, I think, for this to be a 2-day thing, because you give that opportunity where you have great content, you have great pitches, you have great, agendas and programming, but then to your point, a lot of opportunity for those, those run-in connections in the lunch line or the coffee in the morning, or, walk into the parking lot or the hotel at the end of the day. So, that's great stuff. But you mentioned a couple of times, Lorne, the, your accelerators, which they're newish. They're not, new in the last 3 months or 6 months, but newer in the grand scheme. And so probably a lot of folks that maybe haven't heard about them and perhaps could consider them a resource, for their own companies that they're building, or, just scouting if they're investors or strategic partners. So talk a little bit about what those are.
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity. Our Trailblazer Accelerator program was launched leading into VC Fest last year. I think we had run 2 cohorts leading into VC Fest. We've now run 4 more. But essentially, twice a year, we will run a health tech cohort. And then twice a year, we'll run a software cohort that will culminate in a pitch event. And so that software cohort, our current one, will culminate in a pitch event. It'll be the software cohort at this year's VC Fest. But that cohort, that experience in the Trailblazer Accelerator, is really the union of what JumpStart is at its core. When I talk about trying to achieve that impact for our tech clients, it's the union of services. It's the union of access to non-dilutive capital through the cohort, and connections that are made via the wealth of subject matter resources that assist in educating these tech founders over a 3-month period. So the reason this should be of interest to a tech founder who's out there is because it's not just education. It's not just 3 months of subject matter expertise impacting your next pursuit of capital. It's not just introductions to service partners, service providers who can help you wrap around your business with the needed, legal, development, HR, financial resources that you'll need to support your startup. But we actually put real dollars into the program that tech founders can leverage both during the cohort and after the cohort to stimulate their business with growth capital, non-dilutive growth capital that will drive that business that tech startup to another milestone. So during the cohorts, these tech founders get $50,000 to use during the 3-month accelerator period. That can again drive a more near-term milestone. And then via access to our preferred partner program, these tech founders have access to 6 figures of non-dilutive capital through our membership program post-graduation of the accelerator, that again will allow them to achieve another value inflection point within their tech startup, again leveraging resources in these programs, in these preferred partner programs that JumpStart is contributing to, that is non-dilutive. I can't emphasize what an immense impact that has on these tech founders when you aggregate the education with the relationships and the non-dilutive capital to help these tech founders grow further faster.
Yeah, and for maybe startups listening, or folks that maybe want to share this with startups in their network, what's kind of eligibility for this? Is it
Yeah,
any kind of?
it's a great question. I don't want to ever pigeonhole anybody, right?
Sure.
I think certainly those tech founders that are looking to raise pre-seed dollars, I feel like this program should be that launch pad towards being able to raise those pre-seed investment dollars within, a year post-graduation. Does that mean that you've probably raised some friends and family money, gotten some traction around product market fit, maybe even engaged in a pilot which has been validated? Sure. But it isn't meant to be so far along that you need to be ready for your Series A upon applying. I think certainly in the software side of things, in the software sector, it's a lot easier to be earlier and make more traction more immediately in the accelerator. The health tech, founders that have participated usually have raised maybe a larger friends and family round. Maybe we call it a pre-seed round. But I wouldn't ever preclude anybody from applying, because the reality is that when you apply into the Trailblazer Accelerator, which anybody can do, we're actually taking applications right now for the next health tech. Is it the next software accelerator? We're going to have software accelerator pitch at VC Fest, and then we're already taking active applications for the next software accelerator. But we get over 100 applicants every time we open applications for the next cohort. And we only take 10 into the cohort. But that doesn't mean that we aren't working collaboratively with our ecosystem partners here in Northeast Ohio to ensure that everybody that applies has access to resources in the ecosystem that can help build them to be ready for a future Trailblazer Accelerator cohort. So I don't want to preclude anybody from applying, but hopefully some of the guidance I've given here has allowed those that are listening to understand where they fit within the Trailblazer cohort, maybe for the next cohort. But I don't want to preclude anybody from applying, because just applying gets you integrated in the ecosystem and gets you access to the resources that JumpStart's very aware of, that we partner with ecosystem partners to provide.
Yeah, and software and health tech, two incredibly important things. Software, it's in everything. Health tech, you talk about, what better place in the world to build a healthcare technology company than Cleveland, Northeastern Ohio in general. The Ohio Discovery Corridor with groups like Jobs Ohio and Ohio Life Sciences, and there's just so much in that. But Lorne, one thing in kind of chatting through this is seeing your passion for entrepreneurship and helping founders. You don't come from necessarily a tech background. I mean, and you have, but you've worked in athletics, sports, Cleveland Browns. What drew you to this mission style work of JumpStart and serving entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't recall being asked that angle in any other prior podcast. So I appreciate that you're allowing me to be able to tell this story now.
Sure.
So I think the reality is that if you're passionate about emerging technologies, you really can find that passion in any environment. So using my experience in my early days at the Cleveland Browns as the example here, the reality is that most of us in Northeast Ohio, when we watch games like this Sunday coming up with the opener, we see literally what happens on the football field. But we don't understand that maybe what goes on behind the scenes is a lot of exposure to innovation. So in the first half of my tenure at the Browns, the team was actually investing dollars via ownership in the early ownership days of the team relocating back to Cleveland in emerging football technologies. So I was fortunate enough to be the individual that they identified to lead some of those emerging football technology initiatives to help try to drive progress on the field. So initially working with some individuals out on the West Coast, and trying to figure out ways to drive more performance at the quarterback position on Sundays. So I was actually exposed to raising capital for this emerging football technology, putting a prototype together, building a pilot, and then trying to execute it on the field. Following that, the team also invested in other emerging football technologies to help the female fan base learn more about play on the field. So there was a lot of ancillary emerging technology work on the business side of the Cleveland Browns that's not transparent. And a lot of teams do that behind the scenes to try to give them a competitive advantage on the field. That is probably accentuated tenfold with what happens in professional sports nowadays. But maybe I was on the earlier side of that in the early 2000s, to where my exposure at the Browns actually fueled my desire to be part of the tech ecosystem. So when I left the team, joined a football manufacturing apparel business, and then maybe leveraged my experience in Berea with that emerging football technology to bring that to JumpStart and work on the front end of the investment fund when I joined the team here.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think that we have a phrase: every company is a tech company, and it doesn't matter if you're
right.
A professional sports team, although they're, as you mentioned, quite advanced, or a school district or whatever it might be. Like, tech is ingrained into all of it, and there's just so much opportunity. And you all see it more day to day, more deeply than I, but there's just so many great people building cool things, and it's serving all sorts of different industries and sectors and businesses in a place like Ohio. And I think that's just a really special thing.
Yeah, and the other side of JumpStart that maybe doesn't get talked about as much, but it kind of emphasizes what we just alluded to, is obviously we're talking about VC Fest, heavily tech focused, but JumpStart also provides free services to high growth small businesses. Yeah. But I think the reality of what we can do at an organization like JumpStart that does differentiate us is that we've taken some of the learnings on the tech side and now created programs. One is called our Impact Plus program, that tries to motivate the small business side, those clients, to become more tech enabled, right? To your point, everybody can think about how they can be some semblance of a tech business. Mm-hmm. We all leverage technology in various ways. So we don't just limit our perspective on how to create high growth tech companies to those tech startups that join us on day one through our resources and have already decided to take that tech startup route. We're also trying to motivate the small business side, the scale ups, to think about better ways to leverage technology, and maybe a tech startup evolves out of that. So we try to bring that perspective to both sides of the services that we provide here.
Yeah, that's great. And also just things like AI, for instance, that is something that is touching every business, every organization, big, small businesses, family owned, from the restaurants and coffee shops to, the Fortune 500 companies headquartered in Cleveland and across the state. And so, that kind of melding of small businesses with tech solutions, that's an incredibly important thing. And that's where, you all are, have such a fascinating kind of, epicenter of it all.
Yeah. And I think it's also what I'm hoping is appealing about VC Fest to more than just existing tech startups, but individuals that are sitting there with a business going, how do I leverage technology better? If we focus on AI as kind of the dominant topic of VC Fest, one of the panel discussions we're going to have is, how is the market wrestling with the premise of AI, right? There's so much conversation around AI that it feels overwhelming, but there's probably some conversations that are more relevant for those that will attend, and we're going to try to focus in on those. I think we are going to take a tech focus with one of our panel discussions around AI. Like I mentioned, there's the investor panel discussion. There's the focus on how the Midwest is ripe for AI health innovation, but just talking about how the market is wrestling with how to integrate AI, what is relevant, where should we be focused? Is it, if I'm a small business, back office administration? Is it customer engagement? So these are the relevant topics that I hope resonate at VC Fest, digressing back to what we were talking about, because figuring out how to tech enable your business is going to be a more near-term challenge for every business owner in the immediate future here.
Yeah. And especially, again, the epicenter of that is a place like Ohio, where there are just so many of these small businesses, so many of these family held companies that 2-3 generations, and getting making sure that they can have solutions that are vetted and good, because if you're just a small business owner and you Google what's an AI solution or tool for my company, you're going to get 150 results. And so that is incredibly important work.
Yeah, and I think what you just said triggered a thought that I do want to emphasize, is that when we're at so many of these events in Ohio, we talk to so many people right from the big C's, right? Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. But if we're going to truly figure out ways to tech enable the heart of Ohio, we've got to be able to do that from the rural areas as well, right? So I do think, obviously, everybody's convening on Cleveland through VC Fest in a few weeks. But when we're talking about tech enabling smaller businesses or scale up opportunities, that's got to penetrate the rural and regional areas as well. And I think we're getting better at that. But the more you can make Ohio feel like one smaller state, when we've got so many large communities, the more integrated we'll all become, and the more all of these companies can better leverage investor networks outside the region, and leads to jobs, revenue, and capital, the impact I'm talking about for Ohio. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great place, Lorne, to now kind of pivot to the last part of our conversation, where we ask all of our guests some we call them rapid fire, but the answers don't have to necessarily be quick, but just a good way to get to know someone in Cleveland versus someone in Canton versus someone in Portsmouth, Ohio, etc. So the first one is, what's a problem or a challenge that you're currently working to solve? And obviously, the capital connection and relationships and outside, there's a lot. So it could be something big, something small, something on the personal side, like a book reading challenge for the year.
No, I think the challenge that I continue to want to face head on, and we all should, and that's at JumpStart, is making sure everybody is able to tell the stories about impact, right? I mean, sometimes, we do focus so much on metrics and talking about totals of jobs, revenue, and capital that it feels overwhelming to people. So the more you can speak to impact, not just with maybe metrics anecdotes, but personal anecdotes, the more it feels personal and passionate to the individual talking about it. So look, I'm very motivated by, say, the invisible entrepreneur that's in the center of my office every day, right? That is what motivates us here at JumpStart to continue to doing the work in the community. But the more we can make the impact that Ohio is having clear to those within the state and outside the state, because we are having a big impact, which we want to be even bigger, the more you'll get, the reloads that you're looking for, the more you'll get the community support that you're looking for, the corporate support. We've all got to do a better job of communicating impact.
Absolutely. And even, your anecdote of the founder meeting an investor in the lunch line, right? Sometimes, to your point, big events with a lot of people, it can be like, well, I don't know a bunch of folks, and, the kind of, is it worth my time? But like, those anecdotes, I think, are incredibly, so I'm glad you shared that, because that can show of, just showing up and being present and these things and all that. So second one, Lorne, is favorite read, listen, or watch. So it can be a book, a podcast, or show, maybe something fun, how you kind of disconnect at the end of the day or week, or something business related you're looking at, once a year.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to embrace Cleveland holistically. And I probably feel like maybe I do that to too much of an extent, but I'm very passionate about the sports community here. Obviously, I worked in it. Very passionate about the theatrical community, always down at Playhouse Square. But I do like a night at home every once in a while too, right? So if my kids were watching this at some point, they would say, Dad, if you don't say Stranger Things, we're going to have issues. So yes, very passionate about Stranger Things on Netflix when I'm with my kids. We'll actually be traveling to New York to go see the prequel play on Broadway,
Oh, cool.
Which will be part of the canon. But I do like a good documentary to unwind as well. So I just watched a 4-hour Billy Joel documentary on HBO Max, and would encourage anybody to wind down and enjoy 4 hours of wind down experience like I did, because the work that we do is hard work. It's gratifying work. It's passionate work, but we've also got to kind of fine tune our mind to be ready for every day. So I do try to do that with some frivolous stuff too.
That's great. Yeah, you got to have that balance, and sometimes you got to, you can't watch Shark Tank every night and then
No,
go to work the next day.
right.
Next one, which might be tough for you, but what is a place, if someone's coming into town and you got a few people coming into town soon, recommend for a coffee, a lunch, a dinner, favorite spot maybe that you and your family like to frequent?
Yeah, and I think the restaurant that I'm going to mention in a second is indicative of why it's so important for our community to always rally together around our tech startups and our small businesses, right? Because we saw the reality of what happens after a pandemic when we do that, and then when we don't do that. So when the pandemic happened, my kids and I would always go to a restaurant on the east side of Cleveland called Flower every Monday night. And the reason we went every Monday night was because the first time we went on the Monday night, we noticed that there wasn't a lot of traffic in there when they reopened post-pandemic. So we felt like it was our responsibility to make sure that we were there literally every Monday night for almost a period of about 18 months.
Wow.
And so great Italian restaurant, certainly endorsing it, advocating for it. But what I'm also advocating for is that we all have at least one place that we feel passionate about because we drive their business, right? And post-pandemic, there's been so many, obviously the venture capital communities, obviously not investing at the same levels that it was right pre-pandemic. But whether it's a tech startup, whether it's a small business, it's important that we all feel the energy to support, because we are the lifeblood of obviously the entrepreneurial community. So Flower is the example I'm going to give you just because it became very personal to me and my children as an example of why a community needs to rally around businesses and entrepreneurship. And so that's the one that we've continued to enjoy. So
I love that. And that's a
good Italian meal there.
And that's a good, example beyond the specific location of, finding that spot in local and giving them some business, and, tossing in an extra appetizer or maybe dessert, which, that never hurts.
Absolutely.
Final one, work cannot be involved, but how are you spending a perfect Saturday?
So given that we've done the sports comparison, my ultimate perfect Saturday would be if we could replicate 2016 on a Saturday.
Okay.
And maybe Game 7 of the NBA Finals would be on a Saturday night instead of a Sunday night. But absent that, again, if I'm kind of alluding to my passion for the city, love to go on a good walk on a Saturday morning when the weather's like it is outside now. Walk up to a local coffee shop, just take the dog, sit outside, get a pup cup, and then on a Saturday night, take advantage of what Cleveland has to offer, whether it's a concert downtown, whether it's a concert at Blossom, a sporting event downtown, a play at Playhouse Square, a comedian at Pickwick and Frolic, a nice dinner, somewhere on the east side. I think Cleveland has so much to offer community, and just so much to offer us from a diversity perspective that you could literally do something different 52 Saturdays out of the year and have an equally awesome experience. So we try to get out there as much as possible and take advantage of what this wonderful big city has available to us. Yeah.
That's great. And you can never forget the pup cup. That's like number one, or else you'll be getting looks all day.
I will, and my dog will not be too happy, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So Lorne, you get a bonus question.
Sure, please.
What is your bagel and deli order as a fellow Miami?
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy! You just asked me that. No, this is like a karma question because I'm driving my daughter this Saturday to visit Miami University for the first time.
Okay.
That she applies to college. So my daughter's a senior at Shaker Heights High School, and that was one place she applied. But the last time she was there, she was 4.
Okay.
So I can't even tell you if I remember what my bagel and deli order is because I haven't been there since she was 4.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll have to answer that next week when I
Yep.
revisit what's on there. But I remember the last time I was there, the paper was still the same behind
Oh yeah.
everybody making it.
It's
So
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah. I go down once or twice and I have
that's so
from
crazy.
Columbus, I got a bit of an easier drive than you, but it's crazy. There's a few you'll recognize, like
Yeah.
the same paper, and then there are, they've rotated a little bit, but you want to talk about like a, blast of nostalgia hitting you in the face as
Wow.
you walk in. You'll be feeling that soon if you go get a bagel.
No, we just talked about this morning, literally with my sister, who also went to Miami, who's a physician here in Cleveland at the clinic, and we were trying to figure out what to do
Yeah.
Sunday morning, and she goes, "Well, aren't we just going to Bagel and Deli Sunday morning?" And I go, "Yeah, why are we even having a conversation here?"
Yep.
So no, love the reference and very ironic given what's happening this
Yeah.
weekend.
Well,
Thanks for asking that.
at VC Fest, we'll have to chat about what you went with.
Yeah, we'll have to see if I've converted my daughter to a Red Hawk or whether she still wants to be what's on your shirt. She still wants to be a Buckeye. So.
Well, this is our tech hub. So
Oh,
this
I
is
couldn't
not
even see. I
Ohio
just saw the
State.
Buckeye
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just kind of the Buckeye colors, but
There
it's
you
our,
go.
our homage Buckeye. But yeah, thanks to our listeners and watchers for indulging us in some Miami Red Hawk talk.
Very cool.
But Lauren, this has been great. Thank you for joining. Thanks for all the passion that you shared with us today. For everyone listening and watching, we'll also put this in the notes to check out JumpStart, the accelerators, all that. But of course, Ohio VC Fest coming up in Cleveland, September 16th and 17th. I will be there for a few days. I'm looking forward to it. Lauren, thank you so much to you and the team for putting it on, bringing us across Ohio together on an important topic, and also, helping import some people to check out everything that builders and funders here are up to. So thank you.
No, thanks, Chris. And this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing this, and look forward to seeing you and others at VC Fest on the 16th and 17th of this month. It'll be a great time.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening and watching. Again, check out VC Fest, check out JumpStart. Lauren will put your LinkedIn link so if people want to follow along there. But again, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll talk to y'all next time. Bye-bye.